From the front door, this tiny house looks exactly like the listing photos. One small kitchen, tucked into the corner, exactly where the floor plan says it should be. But push on the third shelf of the bookcase against the back wall, the one that looks like it's just holding cookbooks and a few plants. And it doesn't wobble like furniture. It swings. Behind it, a second, fully finished kitchen. Sink, stove, cabinets, all built into a space that, from the outside, reads as nothing more than a bookshelf against a wall. This isn't a movie prop. Hidden bookcase doors are a real, fast-growing category in home design right now, with dedicated manufacturers selling them by the thousands. But when one of them is hiding an entire second kitchen instead of a home office or a wine cellar, that's not just a fun design flex anymore. That's something with real legal weight behind it. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how these doors actually work, what they really cost, and why hiding a second kitchen specifically, instead of a den or a gaming room, is one of the more legally loaded design choices someone can make in 2026. Before we open that door all the way, hit subscribe now, because I'm going to show you the actual hardware that makes a bookshelf swing open like a real door, what it costs to build one yourself, and the specific reason this particular hidden room raises more questions than almost any other kind. Subscribe now, so you don't miss the reveal. Let's start with how the door itself actually works. The general idea behind a hidden bookcase door is simple enough. A piece of furniture that looks completely normal, but is actually mounted on a moving frame, swinging open to reveal a passage, a room, or in this case, an entire second kitchen. The company most associated with this style of door has been building them in the United States since 2012, and the design has become popular enough that the brand recently acquired an entire manufacturing facility to keep up with demand, expanding production capacity by roughly 30% this year alone. That alone tells you this isn't a niche novelty anymore. It's a real, scaling home design category. Mechanically, the door itself relies on a specific kind of hardware. Heavy-duty pivot hinges, mounted at the top and bottom of the frame rather than along the side the way a normal door hinge works. This matters because a bookshelf loaded with books, decor, or in a kitchen application, actual dishware and small appliances, can be genuinely heavy, well over 100 pounds in some builds, and a standard side-mounted hinge would sag or fail under that kind of sustained weight. Pivot hinges distribute that load evenly across the top and bottom of the frame, which is exactly why they're the standard choice for anything marketed as a functional hidden bookcase door rather than a purely decorative one. Beyond the hinge, the other essential piece is the latch mechanism, usually a spring-loaded or magnetic catch that keeps the door flush and immovable when closed, so it doesn't shift or creak under normal use the way a loose piece of furniture might. Combined with a sturdy frame built specifically to support the door's swing radius. That's really the entire mechanical secret behind how a piece of furniture convincingly becomes an entrance. Real shelves, real books, real weight. Just built on a frame designed to move as a single unit instead of staying fixed to the wall. It's also worth knowing that a bookcase is just one style among several that fall under the same category of concealed doors. Some builds disguise the entrance as a full wall of pantry cabinetry, with one door among many that swings open to something entirely different, like a scullery or a walk-in freezer, relying on the uniform look of the cabinet run to make one door indistinguishable from the rest. Others use a large mirror mounted on the same kind of pivot or sliding track, popular for concealing an en-suite bathroom or closet without adding visual clutter to a bedroom. Framed art or a poster is another common variation, sometimes used specifically for a hidden pantry entrance in a kitchen, chosen because a piece of wall art draws far less attention than an oddly placed door ever would. Even trapdoors built into a staircase or floor show up in some builds, usually leading to wine storage or additional below-grade space. The bookcase version tends to be the most popular of all of these specifically because it does double duty. It's genuinely useful storage on its own, which is exactly why it reads as ordinary furniture rather than something built purely to conceal. Here's a number that surprises a lot of people. Building one of these yourself is genuinely affordable, at least for the basic version. A DIY hidden bookcase door, built from scratch, typically runs around $300 in materials. 3/4-inch plywood for the main structure, prime boards for the visible face frame, the pivot hinges themselves, and the latch hardware. That figure comes from current cut list and materials guides published this year. and it typically takes about 1 to 2 weekends for someone reasonably handy to complete. Compare that to a professionally built, fully finished version from a specialty manufacturer, which runs anywhere from roughly $1,500 to $3,000, depending on size, finish, and customization, meaning the DIY route can come in at close to 80% less than a professional build, if you're willing to do the woodworking and hardware installation yourself. There's also a middle option, prefabricated hardware kits, sold with all the pivot hinges and mechanisms already engineered, letting a builder supply their own wooden cabinetry while skipping the hardest part of the mechanical design work, typically for under $1,000. For a tiny house builder trying to keep costs down while still installing something this elaborate, that DIY mid-range price range is genuinely within reach, which is exactly why this design shows up in small, owner-built homes far more often than people might assume, and not just in sprawling custom mansions with unlimited renovation budgets. Most hidden bookcase doors conceal things that are fun, decorative, or purely functional storage. A home theater, a secret library, a wine cellar, a kids' playroom. Design guides covering this trend consistently list those as the standard use cases, and for good reason. Those spaces don't carry any particular legal weight. Nobody needs a permit to have a hidden reading nook. A kitchen is different, and we've actually covered exactly why on this channel before. In most residential zoning codes, a second kitchen, specifically a space with its own permanent range or oven, capable of full meal preparation independent of the main kitchen, is treated as the defining legal threshold between a single-family home and a multi-family dwelling. Cities from Bellevue to New York City treat an undisclosed second kitchen as one of the clearest physical signs that a property may be functioning as an illegal, unpermitted second unit, whether it's being rented out or simply used informally by extended family. So when someone chooses specifically to hide a second kitchen behind a disguised door rather than a den or a storage room, the motivation is rarely about surprise or whimsy the way it usually is with these doors. It's almost always about avoiding the exact kind of attention that a second kitchen predictably draws from an appraiser, an inspector, or a future buyer's lender, all of whom are specifically trained to treat a second kitchen as a flag worth investigating further. That doesn't mean every hidden bookcase kitchen is necessarily illegal. Some homeowners genuinely just want a stylish, concealed working kitchen, keeping a show kitchen visible for guests while the real daily cooking happens behind a hidden door for aesthetic reasons alone. The same logic behind the scullery kitchen's increasingly popular in high-end home design, where a secondary prep kitchen is deliberately kept out of sight, permitted and disclosed, purely for the sake of keeping the main kitchen photo ready at all times. The difference between those two scenarios isn't whether the kitchen is hidden. It's whether it was ever properly permitted, inspected, and disclosed in the first place. And a hidden door, by its very nature, makes that distinction a lot harder for anyone outside the household to check. If a second kitchen genuinely was concealed to avoid disclosure, here's what would actually surface it, because a locked bookshelf isn't as invisible as it might seem. Utility records are usually the first tell. A second kitchen needs its own gas or electric connection for the range, and in many cases its own water line for the sink, which shows up as a mismatch between the number of active utility lines and the number of visible kitchens a home appears to have, the same pattern that's exposed hidden kitchens in previous cases we've covered. Permit history is the second layer. If the structure was originally approved as a single-unit dwelling, and the county's records show no amendment adding a second kitchen, that gap between what's on file and what physically exists in the home becomes obvious the moment anyone, an appraiser, an inspector, a title company, pulls those records during a sale or a routine review. And the door itself, ironically, is rarely as undetectable as it looks in photos. Real hidden bookcase doors, even well-built ones, tend to have a few consistent physical tells. A very slightly raised threshold or gap along the bottom edge to allow the door to swing without dragging on the floor, hinges, or a pivot point that becomes visible if you look at the top or bottom corner of the frame rather than straight at the shelf itself, and books that, on close inspection, are sometimes fixed in place rather than genuinely removable, a detail that shows up in more than one real-world case, where the disguise prioritized visual consistency over actual functionality as a working bookshelf. That last detail actually shows up in a documented case covered by CBS News involving a home with a hidden bookshelf door leading to a stairwell and a secret upper-level room. In that build, the books lining the shelf had been cut in half and glued permanently in place to create a convincing facade, meaning the shelf looked completely authentic from a distance, but couldn't function as actual storage at all, since none of the books could be removed or replaced. It's a small detail, but it's exactly the kind of thing that separates a genuinely functional hidden bookcase, doing double duty as real storage, from one built purely as a disguise with no intention of ever being used as a bookshelf in the first place. And it's often the first thing that gives away a concealed door to someone paying close attention. To be clear, none of this means hidden bookcase doors are inherently sketchy. They're a completely legitimate, increasingly popular design feature, and the vast majority of them are hiding exactly what they're marketed to hide: a den, a pantry, a wine cellar, a kid's secret hangout space, all uses that carry zero legal complication whatsoever. If you're considering building one yourself, the responsible version of this project is straightforward. Use pivot hinges rated for the actual loaded weight of your shelving, not just the empty frame. Most quality hardware is rated up to around 110 pounds, which is more than enough for books and light decor, but worth double checking if you're planning heavier use. Plan your latch mechanism before your trim work goes on, since retrofitting a latch after the frame is finished is significantly harder than building it in from the start. And if what's behind that door is going to be a genuine second kitchen rather than a den or a storage space, treat the permitting question exactly the way you would if the kitchen weren't hidden at all, because the door doesn't change what the space legally is. It only changes how long it takes someone else to notice. So let's bring this back to where we started. A bookshelf that isn't furniture. Pivot hinges built to carry real weight. A latch that keeps the whole thing flush until you know exactly which shelf to push. And behind it, in this case, not a den or a wine cellar, but a second kitchen. The one kind of hidden room that carries actual legal weight, precisely because a second kitchen has never really been about the appliances. It's about what it implies a property might secretly be functioning as underneath a floor plan that says otherwise. If you want more of these, real hardware, real costs, real legal context, no exaggeration, subscribe, because the next video covers a tiny house where the hidden door isn't behind a bookshelf at all. It's built into the staircase itself. Thanks for watching all the way through. I'll see you in the next one.